Welcome back. It's Megan with Charlotte Mason Minimalist. I'm here today to talk about what we did over the summer. So this is my brand new Erin Condren planner that I have not used yet. Over the summer, I didn't use an Erin Condren planner. I used my Happy Planner, which is wonderful for life. I prefer a different type of planner for my lesson planning, and I do actually enjoy some of the Happy planners for school, but I don't combine them, and I just really enjoy the format of the Erin Condren planner. So that's what you're seeing here, and this is our third grade planner. Over the summer, I didn't need that, and that's what I wanted to talk a little bit about. So over the summer, we do lessons, but I don't do them as formal. This is my regular day-to-day Happy planner that I used all year this year for life. I use it for things like cleaning schedules and cooking and appointments and just different things. I don't always keep up with it. I try, but in the summertime, it's really easy to throw lessons in this because I'm not doing something very formal. I write in things I'm reading, things my daughter's working on. It's not there's kind of not a lot of rhyme or reason to it. It's just things that I know we're going to need to do. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about that just because that is how I plan my summer. That's how I plan what we're going to be doing. So I promise you I will get better at these videos. I do have some attachments to my GoPro coming and some things to make that better because this is done on an iPhone and not all of my videos will be like this, I promise. But I'm trying to patiently await for that to come in the mail. So the main thing we did over the summer is this. This is a Gentle Feast. You can see it's well worn. There are pencil marks. This is a Gentle Feast summer morning time planner. You see also my printer, which is normally very happy. The last couple times I printed something was not, and I have these horrible lines going through it, but it was nice that this was just quick and easy and I could print it off. I have the EcoTank, which I highly recommend for anyone who is a homeschooler. Buy an EcoTank. They print, I believe the one we bought was like 15,000 pages before you have to replace the ink, and the ink is very cheap and it's a bottle format that you just pour in. It's not cartridges, and we've loved it. Sometimes things like this, this is kind of a freak thing, and the last few times it did that, but I had to clean the printer heads. But anyway, so I just wanted to tell you that it's really nice, and I will link that below. This is our summer packet. So I had one and my daughter had one. I also have a binding machine, which I'll link that below too, because it makes it easy when you just find something that's a nice resource and you don't have to buy like a physical copy that's going to cost more money. Because like I said, this is very cheap to use my EcoTank. Maybe if I didn't have a good printer, I wouldn't feel that way, but having the printer I have and having a binding machine, it's very cheap to go this route. So the way this resource works, and the reason we both have it, is that we had our memory verse, which I worked on memorizing with her because I did not have Psalm 121 memorized. And then we had this weekly Bible time, and I didn't want to have to like look at hers, but I wanted her to have her own copy. So she also had, you see hers was very well used, that same thing, but hers is significantly thicker than mine. And the reason for that is that she had some language arts in there, and that was the main reason I wanted to do this. She needed more work in handwriting. We're moving into cursive this year. My daughter Abby will be in third grade, and we needed to work on that. So over the summer, we worked on it, and I very much used the Charlotte Mason method. I did not make her write all this at once. Sometimes I set a timer, usually for around 7 to 10 minutes, and I said, I expect quality over quantity, because with the program we were using last year, and this is why we switched, this is the number one language arts reason we switched, there was a lot of writing, and she would be more focused on getting done over the quality of her handwriting, and it was getting very overwhelming to me because I knew she had the capability, but she was developing a bad habit of quickly getting through things and sacrificing quality. And I was not happy with that at all. So this was wonderful. It wasn't on lines. It was just on a line. It wasn't like traditional 3-lined paper with a dash line in the middle. And I was able to set that timer and do erasing if it was needed. And she quickly started to understand that, like, she wants me to do quality writing. She doesn't want me to do writing quickly, and I'm not going to be stuck doing it later because I didn't finish in that 7 minutes. I told her starting off, I don't care if I set the timer for 7 minutes and we have a little garden and that's all you get done. I would be content with that over this entire page done sloppy. And if you do write them sloppy, you need to correct them and don't make me do it. If I have to do it, I'm going to erase it and then you're going to be happy. And then tomorrow you're going to be picking up where you left off with erased words. And sometimes I would stop her gently and say, hey, that letter's not on the line. And we quickly got to where I saw improvement. So I did see improvement in her writing. So she also had pictures to draw, and then she had little writing prompts, and these are not to be graded, not to be criticized, and that's what I loved about it. It was something, we had a curriculum that was very much had a rubric and was telling me what to do, like as far as like she should be having capitals and periods and commas, and she should know what a run-on sentence is, and she's in second grade, which she did know some of those things, but it was critiquing everything she was doing, and it was making her not want to write. And she's the most creative kid ever. And so I was happy with just seeing this because she was down about her writing. She was down about even thinking about what to do next. Because if I even asked her to like, hey, can you write something for me? A lot of times she would just be upset. We had days there were even tears with that curriculum, and it's not a bad curriculum, and for some kids it might work, but for her, she felt like every time she was doing something I was telling her it was wrong, but it was more that I was just going through and I was like red penning a writing assignment of a second grader, and I kind of realized maybe I just was interpreting some of it wrong today, but that's another video for another time. I just want to focus on the fact that she wrote this, she used commas. There are some mistakes, but I didn't say like, hey, that I should be capital. I just rolled with it and said, that's great. What she did is she went through and she told me what she drew in this picture. And so I loved setting that timer because it was like, and she told me like this was a fountain and these are all the things she planted. And I loved it because she just wrote it. Like she didn't feel, I know I'm like fumbling, but she didn't feel overwhelmed. And there were a lot of days we felt overwhelmed last year. So I was really happy with how this improved for her. There were Mad Libs. This was not part of it. She didn't copyright Mad Libs. She just said to do some Mad Libs, and Julie Ross, A Gentle Feast, she gave some like summer suggestions, and this is a Mad Libs. And we actually did a lot of Mad Libs. I didn't bring that down, but we do those a lot anyways. And my daughter has gotten really good at knowing nouns and verbs and stuff just from Mad Libs. So there's another week, and that's how it went. It was just weeks of, these are some of her drawings. It was really a pretty nice setup. This was fun. We made paper airplanes. Oh, I didn't get those out. I have the Usborne dragons. I will link them below as well. They're like paper dragons. We used those, and those were really fun. They go really far too, and they were really neat. She didn't record everything here. I didn't tell her she had to. We just had a lot of fun making them, and then she did record how far some of them went that she did. I didn't make her record everyone's. And then in here, there was some things I printed off with measurement practice and skip counting by quarters to understand a little bit more about fractions. And then we did a couple different projects. This was her swallow she drew. She wrote a little bit about it. And then she recorded books, which she read more than this. She recorded The Sword in the Tree and Dolphin Adventure. She read quite a few more in June, but not before we started this in June. So I didn't make her write every single thing down. I just asked her to write when she thought about it. And then I think this was actually from today. She has the silliest checks. So this is from today, and we were driving around. I had to pick up a ton of back to school stuff, and I had a bunch of resources I needed to get picked up from like Facebook purchases I made. So I said, you know what? Take this with you and see what you see. See what you see while we're out. And this is what she saw. I told her she can pick up tomorrow and try to finish it. So it's supposed to be on a walk. And so we took a lot of walks. Don't think I just put my kid in a car all the time, but we did take a lot of walks this summer, but we happened to have this was like the last thing in our packet to do. So when we went driving, I handed it to her and said, hey, let's see what you find today while we're out running around the city. And Dad had to get measured for a suit, and we just had a lot of stuff to do. So I thought that would be just a way for her to stay busy in the car. So that was our main, I would say that was our main thing we did over the summer for like morning. And then with that, this was what my daughter read. And I talked about Bible time in another video, and I did not talk a lot about which Bible we were using. I said Adventure Bible. That was not accurate. This is the Bible we will be using this year. It's the Discoverer's Bible. It's the New International Reader's Version. And this one it's written more like a reader. I think it's helped my daughter to understand some things. I like how it's written for her age, and she can pick it up and read. Now she's read things from the King James Version. She's read things from a regular NIV. But for our lesson time, she enjoyed using this over the summer. I know there's a lot of glare. She really enjoyed using this over the summer because I would read our Bible lesson from my regular NIV Bible, and then she would read it from here, and she would compare the differences. And that's not something I asked her to do, but it's something she started doing. So I was like, well, I guess we'll just roll with it, and you can talk about the differences. And I found that to be helpful for her to even break down the verse even more. And that was very, very enjoyable for her to do that. And for me, she enjoyed it, but I enjoyed watching her do that and to understand the Bible a little deeper through those comparisons. So this came with, we had purchased My Father's World, 2nd grade, and we never used it, and this sat on the shelf, and she said, hey Mom, can I read out of this? And I'm like, absolutely. She has a lot of Bibles on our shelf, but I liked it and she liked it. So this is what we're probably going to actually use for her morning lessons for 3rd grade. That's a whole nother topic though. So what else did we cover this summer? Well, in this, Julie Ross scheduled a picture study. We did not use that picture study because we were reading through some stuff about birds this summer anyways. So I decided we would do a picture study of John James Audubon. And so we had this book, and I had this book, which obviously I think I paid $1. I actually don't even think I paid that. I think my mom picked that up in an auction for me a long time ago. So we read The Boy Who Drew Birds to understand who John Audubon was. And then throughout the summer, we looked through this. And we have looked at some of his pictures before. So when my daughter saw, I can't think of the name, but it's one with an owl, and she was like, oh, look who this is. I'm like, yes, that's the same person. So it was nice to see her make this one. It was nice to see her make those connections. So that was what we did for for picture study over the summer. And it was very relaxed. We didn't get to it I wouldn't even say we got to it every week of the summer, but we did talk about it. We have a local park called the Audubon that has like a bird sanctuary, and it's a really cool park. So we went there also a couple of times as we were doing that study and talked about birds and looked for birds. Now we also did Birds of Ohio because we live in Ohio, and the Reader's Digest Book of North American Birds, which also had a glare there. These 2 books were wonderful. I'll explain how I used them shortly. And we used them with this. So this is the Burgess Bird Book for children. We didn't do a super hectic schedule. This has been on our shelf for about 2 years. We started using it about 1.5 years ago in 2nd grade. Well, maybe about 1 year ago in 2nd grade with some of the schedules from Ambleside. I will talk about that briefly later. It was just really hard for me to follow Ambleside. I loved it as far as the resources, but I needed it more laid out. It's just, I'm a visual person, and that's how my brain works, and I needed that. So this sat on the shelf for quite a while, and my daughter liked the couple lessons we had done in it, but it just wasn't happening at that time period for us. So I put it back on the shelf. And so she had asked about it, and I said, you know what? we're kind of doing more of a Charlotte, well, we are doing much more of a Charlotte Mason format next year, and we're kind of doing something very similar for our natural history. So let's pull it out and just see what we get through this summer. There's not a strict schedule with it, but we'll just see what lessons we get to. And so all I did is I would read a lesson. So let's say The Watchman of the Old Orchard, like whatever lesson we might be reading. And I would go back and I would find what birds they were. They were the kingbird and the great crested flycatcher. So we would read that story, and as we read, I would have her narrate. I wouldn't have her narrate all at once. I would stop in increments. Like I might read a couple paragraphs or maybe even a page if it was like on the same topic, and then I would like, what happened? Can you tell me what happened so far in that story? And a big key phrase I like to use a lot of times is, what did the author say? Because I don't want her to go off on some rant about what she thinks or what she liked about it. I want her to tell me what the author said. And that's a really good way to do it, just asking that question if you have a kid that likes to go off on rants about their opinions. Now we have Birds of Ohio and the Book of North American Birds. This book is really easy to find the bird in. They're listed by waterfowl, birds of prey, heron-like birds. So they were pretty easy. And then when you find it, it gives you the page number and what size it is. So it's really easy to look these up. It had really nice pictures. It has good descriptions. It tells you where they live in Ohio. I like the ID part because we would talk about some of their characteristics. So I like that it told you the size. It told you if it was some of them. Let me see if I can come across one. Oh, well, I missed that one. Probably a little, oh, right here. So it has male and female. So it shows you what they look like in male or female also. And my daughter always likes to look at these books before we even started this over the summer. So this didn't feel like school to her. And that's one of the reasons I chose to do it. Anything that doesn't feel like school is great because I don't like it to be like a separate part of our life. What I will say is that this text, while good, was not quite as living and story-like as the text in this Reader's Digest one. So this was harder to find though, because what they did is the contents didn't give you a list of birds. They gave you a list of not random, but like specific types. So smaller open country birds. So then I would have to go and flip and find page 72. And then I have my list of the smaller open country birds that I can find. So I looked up the birds in this book for her. And how we did that is we traded. So I looked them up in this, and then I'm like, do you want to read this? Because it's more like, more of a living book. And then sometimes she would have trouble with words and was a little above her reading level. She was only between second and third grade, but she, like I said, is very advanced in reading, and she's also really good at narrations. And I didn't make her narrate this because she already narrated the Burgess Bird book, but she enjoyed reading this. And then I would not read this, but I would glance over it. And then we would usually talk about some of those ID traits and see where they live in Ohio out of this book. So that was a really fun way we did that. What we did as far as a lesson for that, which you could do this, I wanted to share that because this doesn't have to be a summer thing. This was just something we really enjoyed doing, and it was the perfect time of year to do that in summer. I found a website, and I know this is horrible, and I will find it and link it in the comments, but I can't remember what it was, that gave me a link to color pictures, like the pictures from the Burgess Bird book in color. So we could also see what they looked like. And that's kind of where this also it came into play over the summer, because I was able to use our cookbook stand to put the pictures up there. So the books too, if I found a bird she was going to be using, I would put it up on the stand. So this was her. I made these, obviously, and I had previously talked to you about why I love my printer and having a binding machine, which is just, it's not a spiral, it's just these little comb bindings, but it's nice even for stuff like this. So these are her birds. So this is when we started. It's a Carolina wren, and so she found it, and we looked it up, we talked about it, and she would try to accurately color. So it's never graded, obviously. It's never criticized. It's just do your best, color your picture as accurately as possible. She did use Prismacolors, so that they do have a little bit more accurate colors in that than in just like a Crayola. I actually am planning on buying, there's like a nature color set, I believe. And there's a couple different ones that have even more nature colors, also like a skin tone set. There's a few different sets I'm thinking of adding this year. We have a set that's about 50 some Prismacolors, and some of those are getting wore down. We've had them for a couple years, but we also love them, and they're very well loved and used in this house. So obviously, you see she did not write in answers, but we talked about all of these. What colors is the bird? Describe its shape. What are its field marks? What are its field marks? This is where that ID part in this Ohio book came in, because I would go and I would be like, what are its field marks? And we could see right here that it says the ID of the red knot is chunky, round body, greenish legs. Those are identification marks. That's field markings, and it has more than that, but we would talk about things, you know, this bird here, it has a white brow. Like, you might notice that if you saw this bird out in nature. And then we would talk about how big it was, and it says to compare it to a crow, a robin, or a sparrow. Well, we have a window feeder that we have lots of birds come to, and the one that we really enjoy seeing the most is a cardinal. Their cardinals are everywhere in Ohio. So we compared it to a cardinal. And do males and females look different? If so, how are they different? And that's where, again, this book and the other one came into play, that we could look through and find that out. And did you color a male or female? So we would just talk about those questions. And then she would do more. So we would never do both. I never told her she had to do both birds in a day. If our Burgess Bird book by Thornton Burgess had more than one bird, I didn't make her do 2 birds or 3 birds in a day. The next day that we did bird study, we would just do the next bird, and we didn't have a reading that day. And that's how I treated that over the summer. Okay, so I had mentioned, we're kind of talking on nature study, so I want to continue with that topic. We did some of this. I'm sure a lot of you, especially the Charlotte Mason fans out there, have heard of Exploring Nature with Children. We've never used it. We've done some nature study. We've used different resources. We actually really love the anatomy books. They're Farm Anatomy, Nature Anatomy, and we also have, both me and my daughter have the Nature Anatomy journals. We decided to try this because we will be using this as our main science for 3rd grade. We have other things we're adding in, and some topics we'll dig deeper into, but this is what we're following this guide because it goes along with our year. And it's very much whatever the season is, that's the topic that's studied. So we really liked that about it. We just went to the month. So obviously you don't start at the beginning in a study like this, because that wouldn't make sense, because if you were to start at the beginning. So this has a field trip. I think the first week we did was the bee week. I'm trying to see. We did the summer solstice. There was a couple weeks we didn't get to, but I kind of just wanted to show you a week of it. If you were doing a week, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. So here, we did this week, the summer solstice. Sorry, I'm trying not to have my shadow and glare. I promise I will get better at recording the more of these I do. I just really want to share what we're doing. So here's our summer solstice day. And what we did is we went to the park. We spent the whole day. We got there when the sun rose. My husband's a park ranger, so we took him to work that day, and before the sun came up, we got to watch the sunrise at it's a really beautiful local park. And then this schedules the Handbook of Nature Study. It also schedules other books we can use. And then there's always poetry, a piece of artwork, and the extension activities. And we made cookies, and it had a recipe, and we made enough to do however many hours of sunlight there would be where we lived. We made sunshine cookies, and however many hours of night there would be, we made moons. And we'll probably do something similar for the winter solstice. And it kind of demonstrated those hours of sunlight to daylight ratio. And we actually stayed outside almost the entire day. We made a big picnic lunch. We cooked out, actually. We made picnic food and cooked out on a grill. And we had breakfast in the park and we had lunch in the park. It was very hot though, so we did come back for a little bit and relax and come back in the afternoon and spend the rest of the afternoon there with some cousins and my brother and some other family members, and it was a really great day. And then by the end of the day, we were all exhausted, but we got to watch the sun go down, and we went to a local hill where we could watch it set. So we were able to see sunrise to sundown on the longest day of the year. That's what set me on this curriculum to say we are 100% using it. It has so much, and you can use it with so many different ages. So if you have an older child, I would recommend pulling out the Handbook of Nature Study, Comstock. She has a great resource there. My daughter sometimes flips through that even as a third grader. I'm not quite ready to use that as our scheduling yet. I think this is a good fit for us for now, and we enjoyed some of the lessons for the summer. I also purchased the phonology wheel. I may be using that throughout the year this year, but it's not something I used over the summer. I was kind of just transitioning, and we've only been in our condo we're living in now for 6 months, so there was a lot happening. So we just took the year and worked the summer and worked on that, and we will be doing that all year this year. So, Life of Fred. This is something that we used over the summer also. You do not have to do any of this stuff over the summer, let me say. Life of Fred series, my daughter loves. We read Apples also, but I can't find it, which just goes to show how much she loves it. We're in the middle of Butterflies. We're almost done with the summer. I'm sure we'll probably finish it before then. But this has helped her think mathematically. I didn't do a lot other than this and some flashcards to go over addition and subtraction. We've introduced multiplication and division, but we're not quite ready to memorize those yet. So I went over some of the flashcards, but this is storybook format. It seems so silly. And at first I was like, oh, this is not going to work. This is not something I'm even interested in pursuing when I bought the first one. But then my daughter was like, I will use my own money to buy this book. So I was like, well, she's getting something out of it. And there were little things from Life of Fred Apples that helped her a lot, such as understanding what a group or a set is. And I'm like, how do you know that? And it's because of that. She uses Singapore for her regular math curriculum, and we love that. But there's terminology and stuff that she picked up from these that I was like, well, we'll probably continue these as a supplement. Maybe not throughout the entire school year. I know this is not a technically like Charlotte Mason friendly math curriculum. She used more of like the actual, I don't want to say dry facts, but like, you know, you're learning how to use math because you want to learn how to add money, or you want to learn how to operate a business. Like, you're learning things for practical reasons. This is more like, it's a funny living way of teaching it. So I don't find it good for like understanding maybe addition and subtraction, multiplication, division, in the sense that we're going to memorize those things and know them inside and out. But for terms in math, like the commutative property, like I had a first grader, well, when I first read the commutative property part to her, we had bought this in first grade, and I kind of shelved it, and she kept asking me. I'm like, I just didn't like it that much. And then she talked a little bit more to me about it and was mentioning the commutative property, and this is going into like second. I'm like, well, ending second grade. And she was like, remember we learned like the commutative property, and I'm like, what? Do you remember that from first grade? So then I was like, well, we'll pick these back up and give them a try. And it's not something I'm comfortable at all. I'm not a very mathematically minded person. I would not be comfortable using this as our main math curriculum. But I will say, if you have a child who is very literature minded and has trouble understanding things like that in math, that this can be a help. I'm not saying you can't use it as a main curriculum, because I know people that do. Just for me personally, it is not something I would prefer to do, and I don't think I could do it. That's why we use Singapore. But this curriculum would be really good for somebody that's looking for a literature-based math curriculum, or somebody looking for a fun way to get kids to enjoy math, or to kind of make it click. Like that's what it did for my daughter. It helped some concepts and terminology click for her that she wasn't grasping. So that's something, and I have apples too, but I don't know where it's at. So we did read alouds every summer, all the time. We are always doing read alouds. We read Peter Pan. That's the main thing we read over the summer. She loved it. It was like her favorite thing ever. This is a read aloud that I read to her. This is the, well, yeah, it's the original. It's not the play, but it's his writing by J.M. Barrie, and we really enjoyed that. And then we watched, of course, Peter Pan, and we're supposed to watch Hook this week, Disney movie version of stuff. And she really likes that because we had read Pinocchio or Pinocchio, however you want to pronounce it, this year, and my daughter loved that. So let me put a disclaimer here. The reason I'm saying that is because my husband had taken an Italian class this year. And so when we talk about Pinocchio, he kept correcting us and saying, well, his professor told him it's not how you really pronounce it. So my daughter ran with that, and all year was like, it's not Pinocchio, Mom. But obviously in America and in all the Disney version of what we see, it's Pinocchio. So we read that and we finished that coming into the summer, and then we watched the movie, and then we read Peter Pan and we watched that movie, and we're going to watch Hook. And so we also did this, and we had done Sunlight last year, but we did not finish the year because I didn't start until a lot later in the year. But we're not continuing with it next year, but we are continuing with the read alouds. At least some of them. I won't say we're doing all of them, but this is where we're at. So we have a little bit left in this, and this is a read aloud that I would recommend for this age group. I think sometimes Greek myths can be overwhelming and they can have a lot in them that's not appropriate. But for my 8-year-old, this introduced Greek myths in a way that was not an inappropriate topic. And it had I will also give you a disclaimer on this, that there are things that may be a little harsh for an 8-year-old or younger. But my daughter has read things that are harsh already. I don't want to, just like about somebody dying or something like that. We've read things like that before, and she seems to handle it pretty well. And she usually tells me like the moral and understands what it was about. If we weren't at that stage, there may have been, I really would recommend this for maybe under 6 or under 7, under the age of 7. But if you're looking for something, I wouldn't say this is 100% a Charlotte Mason Living book. It is an Usborne book. I don't always love Usborne books for our main lessons, but this one, I actually used to sell Usborne, and I do enjoy them, and I actually really like some of their reference things for my daughter, and we reference them. But as far as our living books, that's not my favorite. But this one is good because it introduces things in a way that is very laid back. So let me quickly show you in this, and I'm not trying to take up all your time today in our summer reading, but this is a Sunlight schedule, and this is how it works if anyone's ever interested in Sunlight. And I just pull these out when we're doing a read aloud because it gives me everything I need. And we have a map, and so whenever I'm reading something and it gives me something like this, I know I can pull out my map and I can reference these points on the map, and then I can get out our big giant wet erase map and you can write those in. And so that's something that I enjoy in the questions and things. But as far as this, like my daughter just narrates it, and then if there's something that's like a good question, I might ask it, but we don't always use those questions. I really enjoy the map. Sometimes a definition that might be confusing to her. Okay, so she read a lot of books this summer, but I wanted to highlight these that we purchased. So these were the Sunlight readers. I made you like a separate post and just talk about what my daughter thought of them. This is The Curious Cat Spy Club. She is still working on this one. I also bought their readers from last year. Well, I'm sure all of you that know that we have COVID-19 going on, that there wasn't a lot to do, especially at the beginning of this summer. So I bought the last year's Sunlight readers, and she read those in a couple weeks. And I was like, okay, I had purchased her this big Amazon order, but it was like the ones that Sunlight had recommended for last year. And within, I want to say like the first month of summer, they were done and some more books. So I was like, we have to get something else. I can't, and we did get out a lot more in nature after that, but we did the Curious Cat Spy Club. She is almost done with this one, and she's really enjoyed it. It's a pretty thick book. I didn't realize it, and it actually said it was geared ages 9 to 12, which I wasn't 100% happy with because it was an elementary reader, and the summer collection, it didn't say that. But I like previewed it briefly and read some reviews and didn't see anything super crazy about it. So she's loving that. She loves anything spy, mystery. I also purchased her a bunch of the 3rd grade detective books. So that was a good one. She has the first pet vet, and this came in the second set, or the second reader set that we've used. And she had the first one, which was called Cranky Paws, and this is the Mare's Tail. She hasn't read this yet, so we just got these, and she's almost done with that just this week. And then she received a Lottie Lipton Adventure, and that's another one she has not read because we, like I said, just got these. And this is another thicker one, but it looks really good, and it's called Escape from Baxter's Barn. And I liked this because it says, fans of Charlotte's Web will enjoy this charming tale. And I absolutely, my daughter loves Charlotte's Web. We've read it like 3 or 4 times. So I thought this would be really good that was in those readers. So I wanted to kind of include that. And something else I bought, which we have not touched because we just got it this week also. You know, we're coming to the end of our summer now. But it's this Brain Teasers. And it's not super thick. It's just a highlights book. But I kind of wanted to show you what the formatting was for anyone that was interested in that. It has just like things to kind of keep you busy. I don't want to say busy work, but in a way that's what it is. But because I am prepping for next year and there's still not a whole lot going on we're doing, I decided to order her this because she finished all of her Gentle Feast. We're just about done with nearly everything else we were doing. We've been, still reading through a couple books, but she also had a lot of books she read to me, which I didn't even bring those out. She had a little stack of, not readers, but kind of like this level of stuff that she read to me over the summer. And I just thought if she still has these books and she has these Brain Teasers, that would be a good way to finish off the summer. So we had a lot. As you can see, this is our summer. This is our summer in a nutshell, but it seems like a lot, but it was no more than maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes a day. Like we would do reading. Her personal reading might have taken a little longer, but as far as like our actual daily lessons, like we didn't do everything every day, and it was very spread out evenly and well throughout the summer. So I hope you enjoyed seeing our summer and seeing what we've been doing this year. And I'll see you next time.